Hi, everybody. I am Kevin Ioli from Yahoo Sports, and my next guest is a familiar face, a longtime guy on the MMA scene, one of the brightest minds in the sport, the president of Bellator MMA, and I guess Bellator Kickboxing, my friend, Mr. Scott Coker. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing great, Kevin.
It's not, I'm going to go step out of my normal thing here as a journalist for just 1 second. I know you've been signing free agents, you've been looking for, good quality fighters. And I know somebody who is looking to fight, who is available, who is a free agent. And the only thing he's looking for is a little bit of money. So I want to see potentially if you could sign this guy.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
So
I'm telling you, the contract's on the way. I love that.
he's got a right
That's
hand,
awesome.
dude. He can crack.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I am the epitome of a non-fighter. So believe me, I am not signing anything. But one of the guys, first thing I want to start with you about, Scott. One of the guys I think is a fighter, and I really love as a fighter, is Paul Daley. He made news not for a great win or anything, but for kind of doing commentary during his fight and being unhappy with his opponent, Jon Fitch. First off, what was your reaction to Paul's unhappiness with the way Jon Fitch fought him?
Well, I thought it was a very interesting delivery. A very interesting time. I've never seen that before, but Paul's special. I mean, this guy has been around a long time, Kevin, as you know.
Yep.
Put on some of the greatest fights for us, or even in Strikeforce back in the day. Him and Nick Diaz was one of my favorite fights of all time.
Right.
And he is a fighter that consistently delivers it. And we're going to talk in London, but he was a little bit upset about something, and we still haven't actually had a chance to talk. But I'm going to sit down with him and talk to him, and we'll work it out because like I told Paul, I said, Paul, we've been doing this a long time together, and let's work it out. And so he's open to it. We've been emailing back and forth. We're setting up a time, and we're going to work it out because Paul's a tremendous talent. I want him on the Bellator roster for a long time. And hey, why can't we? Let's all get along, man. It's like it's not that difficult.
Well, it seems like there's two issues. I mean, he certainly wasn't happy with Fitch's performance, but he was kind of complaining about you and Bellator prior to that. And so,
Yes.
do you think his comments were driven more by past unhappiness or actually by the events of the fight itself?
To be honest with you, Kevin, I don't even know what he's unhappy about. I
Interesting.
mean, he hasn't said anything to me. But listen, fighters, as you know, are emotional before their fight, and it's like, it's just that time
Right.
where a couple weeks before the fight, Kevin, I'm listening, but I'm not really listening.
Right.
I'm like, look, get through the fight, and then we'll have an intelligent conversation between two adults, and we'll work it out. I mean, that's how I feel. And I feel the same way now. It's like, look, he was unhappy. He was blasting me.
Right.
He's going after me, but I'm not going to comment on that because it's just a time frame. And now that the fight's over, he's emailing me. I look forward to seeing you in London, and we'll hang out and
Right.
let's have a conversation. So that's what we're going to do.
Jill, last question on that. While I understand his frustration, the type of fight it was, he's a slugger and likes to have those highlight reel knockouts and get into a slugfest. I understand his frustration. You knew when you signed the contract the kind of fighter that Jon Fitch was, right? I mean, he did have the option. You did not force him to sign that contract, I don't think.
No, it's actually a fight that he wanted to take. He actually made a graphic, Kevin, which I'll have my guy sent to you. He actually made the poster. This is what the poster should look like between me and Fitch. And so he
Okay.
made the poster. He wanted the fight, and in that first round, he almost finished the fight.
Right.
He was really close. But John's a grinder, and he just took him down and he held him down, and that's really not Paul's specialty. Or he's a better striker than he is maybe a wrestler.
Right.
But that's what makes Paul Paul. On any given day, one punch, one kick, one knee, it's over. So it just worked out the way it did.
He got banned famously from the UFC a couple of years ago, and I think part of his ban was when he went after Josh Koscheck. I think it was frustration because of the exact same thing. Koscheck wrestled him. Koscheck, controlled him and didn't let him throw his strikes. And I think it's just been a history of Paul's that that he's been like that after those kind of fights.
Yeah, and he's a good guy. I don't want to label him as this.
No, I think he is. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's just, what? It's when they step into that cage or right before that cage, it's just an emotional time, and they have a certain energy about them. And with Koscheck, that was a long time ago. He's a different person, today. But he is. I think he was frustrated, and but this is MMA too. You have to be able to get back up and do your thing, and it just didn't work out for him. But to me, that one fight doesn't make me feel one way or another about Paul.
Got it.
He's still a great fighter. I still want him on the roster, and we're going to work it out.
Let's move on. The first round of your heavyweight Grand Prix is finally over.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Bader, I wasn't surprised Ryan Bader beat King Mo. I was surprised the way he beat King Mo. But now we go into the final or semifinals, excuse me, where we have Matt Mitrione going up against Bader, Fedor Emelianenko against Chael Sonnen. I guess you have the greatest heavyweight of all time in Fedor, and that fight is what Chael says. What was your impressions of the first round? Were you pleased with the way it played out? And then to add on some comments about the semifinal matchups.
I couldn't be happier, Kevin. Honestly, when you laid this thing out, we wanted Fedor to fight Mir, and we wanted Matt to fight Roy Nelson. We put these great matchups together, and I'm knocking on wood because normally there's an injury in there somewhere, right? Where the guy can't continue, and then we have to get an alternate. But to have all four of those fights happen, and have four winners moving forward, into the fall to do the first fight of the semifinals. Very excited. Fedor Chael is going to be an interesting fight. I think that it's it's going to be like Chael's wrestling versus Fedor striking, and Chael has proved to me that he can fight big guys. I mean, when he fought Rampage, that was a 250 or 245 Rampage, so Chael can handle it. And then like you said with Bader. Not in a million years, I think he would knock King Mo out with a punch.
Right.
But like I thought it might be a ground and pound, or like he would go back and forth, and they'd have this epic battle. But it's MMA, man. That's why people love it. And he and Matt Mitrione, that's going to be another great fight. So we got two great fights in the semifinals. I'm really looking forward to it.
I wanted to ask you the Fedor fight. There was so many questions surrounding Fedor going into the fight. What does he have left? Can he be, anything like he was? And I think, when I saw that matchup, I loved your matchmaking there, putting Frank Mir against him, because you have this guy that, I think is one of the greatest ground fighters for a big man in MMA history, Frank Mir, going up against, one of the greatest fighters of all time in Fedor. And of course, the one thing we know about Fedor now is he is a striker. So I just did not, I thought it was a fun, entertaining fight. I didn't get Frank Mir's strategy. Like, what's going on here? I mean, what are you trying to do, going in there attacking Fedor when the one thing is that he can strike and hit you.
Yeah.
What was your take on that?
I think things changed because I think what happened was when Frank caught him on the top of the head and then, Fedor went down, he probably thought, I'm going to go finish this guy. And he went to finish him. And then that's when Fedor caught him with that judo throw. And I think when he landed on top of him, I think that's kind of what, turned the tide was, here's this guy, 260 pounds, and Fedor threw him, and landed on him. And then I think it took the little wind out of him. And then I think he's a little bit disoriented after that point. And then Fedor just marched him down and then, ground and pounded him. So it worked out the way it did. But I think the initial contact was, I got this guy. And Frank's like, I'm going to go finish this guy. And then I don't think he realized Fedor wasn't that hurt. It was, I think it was more of a push. Fedor got up and then he started slinging. And Kevin, you know how it is. Big guys like this, when they start swinging for the fences, man, you don't know. I mean, it could have went the other way. Frank could have hit him, and it could have been over. So he was going for the finish, and it just didn't work out.
That's why I didn't understand Frank's strategy. It's like being so aggressive, because it's like the one way you got to think that Fedor has a chance to win is to hit him on the chin and knock him out. I mean, he showed against a giant like Mitrione that he could still punch, and that's what it just made me, see Frank fight a conservative fight and use his grappling and try to win that way. And I was just like mystified, and I thought he played right into Fedor's hands.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some truth to that, but I think that when he caught Fedor in the very beginning, I think that changed his whole strategy. I think he was probably like, feel him out and then, try to push him against the fence and take him down and then work his ground game. But I think when Fedor, went down, then I think that he's got excited and went right after him.
Let's talk a little bit about Ryan Bader, because he's in an interesting situation. He is your light heavyweight champion. Makes 205 easily. I guess not easily, but he makes it. And can be there. And a relatively small heavyweight. I asked him before the fight with King Mo what he would do if he won the Grand Prix, and he said he wasn't sure, which way he would go, and he thought maybe I would try to defend both. Would you allow that if he wins the Grand Prix? And I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but if Ryan Bader comes out and is the Bellator heavyweight champion, would
Hmm.
you allow him to defend both titles if he so chose?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good question, and I think right now, like you said, hypothetically moving forward, if he wins the title or wins the tournament belt, we would ask him to defend it at least one time as a heavyweight, and then we'll let him pick. But eventually, he'll have to pick, Kevin, because there's going to be people waiting at
Sure.
205. There's going to be people waiting at heavyweight. So to make it fair, we would probably ask him at some point, to decide which weight class you want to fight in. But you know, he is a big man. I mean, believe me, this guy could fight at heavyweight if he really wanted to,
Right.
and he might have the speed advantage. And but I don't think that count him out at heavyweight because he might end up staying there.
Yeah, no, I think he's a great fighter and a good big guy. I just, you wonder, like, when you're giving up 35 pounds to somebody, if that's, and the heavyweights nowadays, I mean, you remember when MMA was first coming around, the heavyweights weren't, either they were over 300 pounds and there wasn't a weight class, or the heavyweights were, the Randy Couture size, smaller guy.
Right. Right. Well, think about this. Deontay Wilder weighed in his last fight, what, at 216, 217?
Yeah,
And Bader was what, 225,
yeah.
some. I mean, so he is a heavyweight, and he has to really diet and really, cut weight to make it to 205. And I think he's used to it because of his wrestling background. But I wouldn't count him out a heavyweight, Kevin. I think this guy could do it.
All right. Well, you know better than me. There's a couple more things I wanted to touch on with you. A week from today, we're recording this on May 18th. A week from today, Friday, May 25th, in London, SSC Arena at Wembley, Bellator 200, kind of a milestone card for you guys. Crow Cop against Roy Nelson, Carvalho against Gegard Mousasi. Michael Venom Page against David Rickles, Davis and Vassell, and an MTV star you got fighting on there, Aaron Chalmers against Ash Griffiths. I want to ask you about Crow Cop and A, why he wasn't in your Grand Prix to begin with, and B, the fight with Roy Nelson. Should be a fun fight, I would think.
Yeah, we originally inquired to Mirko about fighting in the tournament, but his manager let me know clearly he had a contract with Ryzen that he was going to be obligated to, certain fights there. So we didn't know his schedule. We didn't really, couldn't work it out as far as like
Got it.
making sure he was available. He might have been here. And as far as, him fighting Roy, I think that that's going to be a fun fight to watch. That's going to be a rematch. Somebody told me the other day that Mirko has never lost a rematch. So I'm sure he's training hard for this fight. But originally, we had asked Rampage to fight Mirko in London at that fight.
And he didn't want that?
Well, the reason it didn't happen was he's doing a movie right now.
Ah,
So he's busy in his in his acting career. So I said, hey, you know what? We'll find another time, and we'll put this together later. But with Roy, fighting Mirko, I think Mirko's motivated. I think that Roy really wants this fight. He wants to win this fight as well. He wants to get back in the tournament. So this is a tournament alternate bout, and if we have an injury along the way, the winner of this fight will continue on and fight in the tournament.
just as an aside, you mentioned Rampage filming a movie, and I wonder, do you think when guys start getting in these movies, Rampage did a big movie before, Ronda Rousey has been in a number of big movies, that's the beginning of the end of them as as really serious MMA fighters? It seems like when you look at the fighters who've gone into movies and really, and not just dabbled in it, but done it, on a relatively full time basis, big production movies, their MMA career doesn't go as well afterwards.
Yeah, you know what? There's some truth to that, Kevin, because I think the focus is on something else now, and they're not thinking about training, they're not thinking about sparring. They're thinking about how to move their theatrical career forward, and so it affects their training, it affects their overall. I think even the psyche, like as far as being a warrior, getting in the gym and sparring and getting better and doing the groundwork and and grinding it out every day. It's tough being an MMA fighter. I mean,
Right.
these guys a lot of pain, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of denial, and now they're in a movie, set, and they're having all this catering running around. They got their own, van, and then people telling them, Mr. Jackson, you're so and so, can I get you this? Can I get you that? It's just a different mindset, and I think that that's why you've seen some people once they finish a film or once they cannot get into this thing, they start having a lack of success in their fight career.
I was actually in a couple of movies, although I certainly was far from a star. And it was like you had to watch that much of the movie to see me in both of the ones that I was in. But not a lot of hard work on those movies and a lot of standing around waiting. So I know it's not easy, but it like you say, it kind of makes it tough on the MMA career, no doubt.
Yeah.
Let's move on. I know I'm going a little bit long here, so I was going to ask you about more of the fights, but I want to end with this. There's a lot of streaming deals coming out now. Eddie Hearn, the boxing promoter, recently announced a $1 billion deal with DAZN for streaming fights. UFC and Top Rank Boxing both are going to be on ESPN Plus, and I'm hearing that UFC is going to do an additional streaming deal, not just with ESPN, but another one on top of everybody expects them to get a deal done with Fox. So really, you're seeing a lot of stuff go online in the combat sports space. Does Bellator have any plans to do that? And do you think it's a good thing for fight fans to have stuff going off of traditional television and onto a streaming service?
Kevin, I think it's a good thing, and I'll tell you why. Because I have a son that's 30 years old, and he doesn't watch TV anymore.
Yeah.
He gets all his stuff on the phone, or on his mobile app, or like on his iPad, or he is one of those cord cutters.
Right.
For me, I'm a TV guy. I'm going to be that guy watching TV forever because I just love it. But I think for the next generation and the next generation after that, and then like my grandkids one day, it's like they're gonna have to want to watch it on a different platform.
Right.
And so that's why I think that there is a piece to having it, a piece to a business of having an OTT platform. I think makes a lot of sense. And I think Bellator, I think that eventually we'll get something done too. I think that Viacom is out there talking to everybody, and it's one of the benefits of having a company like Viacom own the league is that they know everybody that out there talking, and we'll see what happens. But I think that there is a piece for the future that OTT platforms will want live sporting events because that's where people will tune into live sports, and I think it's going to work.
I think we're close on the bandwidth speed, right? Like in my house, I have a gigabit internet connection, so really fast. The thing I worry about though is the buffering and hey, the knockout punch comes and Bader hits King Mo and my screen was buffering, and that's the one thing that would concern me about it. Do you think that there's the time right now to fully go in this? I know 5G is coming in the next couple of years. That's going to be a big thing. Do you feel like we have the bandwidth speeds to do it correctly right now?
Kevin, even though I live in Silicon Valley, I have no idea what you're talking about. 5G, 1G, 1K. I mean, to me, it's like I turn on my stuff and it works, and I'm happy. That's something I'll have to ask my son to explain that to me, and then I'll get back to you on the answer.
So our next interview, we'll have Scott will be more educated on this one, and he'll give us an update on what he thinks on the internet speeds and if there's enough bandwidth for it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, brother. Well, I know you're busy today, and I appreciate you giving me a few minutes. Thank you so much. Good luck with Bellator 200 and the rest of the heavyweight Grand Prix, Mr. Scott Coker.
Yeah, thank you. And Kevin, when you're ready to sign the guy, the little guy, let me know.
I'll have my people call your people.
Please do.
See you, Scott.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks.